Recently, Apple updated their 13-inch MacBook Pro line for 2020. There are two variants which can be distinguished by whether there are 2 or 4 Thunderbolt ports. The 2-port entry-level model starts at $1,300 US. This model sports a 1.4 GHz quad-core 8th generation Intel Core i5 processor which will turbo up to 3.9 GHz. The entry-level model uses Intel Iris Pro Graphics 645 GPU and has 8 gigabytes of 2.1 gigahertz LPDDR3 memory with 256 gigabytes of solid-state storage. The 4-port high-level model starts at $1,800 US. This model sports a 2 GHz quad-core 10th generation Core i5 processor which will turbo up to 3.8 GHz. The high-end model uses the Intel Iris Plus graphics integrated GPU and has 16 gigabytes of 3.7 GHz LPDDR4X memory with 512 gigabytes of SSD storage. There are some not so obvious differences between the entry and high-end models. First, the high-end model has 2 internal fans for cooling rather than the single fan on the entry-level model. This better cooling system in the high-end model will allow for sustained performance under load. So for example, when rendering video in Final Cut Pro, the high-end model will stay cooler for a longer period of time, allowing the CPU to perform well without temperature throttling. Second, the $1,800 MacBook Pro has 2 subwoofers in its speaker array. The subwoofers significantly enhance bass output and overall sound quality when compared to the entry-level MacBook Pro 13-inch. There are some extra vents beneath the high-end MacBook Pro which may assist in cooling and speaker output. So these are some of the differences between the entry-level 2-port model and the 4-port high-end model. Now let's talk about some similarities between the entry-level and high-end MacBooks Pro. Both models have a 13-inch Retina display with True Tone. Both models also have a Magic Keyboard with 1mm of key travel and a touch bar with Touch ID. There are significant performance differences between the entry-level MacBook Pro 13-inch and the high-end MacBook Pro 13-inch. This is due mainly to the 10th generation CPU in the high-end MacBook Pro 13-inch. The high-end MacBook Pro has a graphics processor which is approximately 80% faster than the entry-level MacBook Pro. Also, in single core, according to Geekbench, the high-end MacBook Pro is approximately 30% faster, but strangely enough, for multi-core, the high-end MacBook Pro is only 13% faster. Overall, what this translates into is significantly faster graphics processing, which will assist with any rendering projects that you have with iMovie or Final Cut Pro, or anything in general that makes use of the GPU, the graphics processing unit. As you can see here for Geekbench 5, the MacBook Pro scores quite well. And even in multi-core, it compares favorably to older models of the 15-inch MacBook Pro, scoring 4452, whereas a MacBook Pro from 2018 scored 4894. So this is an impressive improvement, given that this now scores as high as a MacBook Pro 15 inch from 2 years ago.